I am so excited to be here with you all again today for our next edition of the Walk the World vlog and podcast series. I'm excited to introduce you all the more to our special guest that we have to learn more about her work in Burma, Myanmar, and with the diaspora of people all across the world from that part of the globe. And so she does some pretty exciting work. And I would just love to start off. Could you introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about your story and how it connects to our conversation today.
Certainly. Thank you, Nico. What a great opportunity to have the opportunity to share my story, because my story is not a unique one. There is countless stories like mine in Burma. And so I come from a Korean state. It is located at the Eastern Burma, and it is bordering with Thailand. That's how I ended up becoming a refugee in Thailand, because of the border is very close to where I came from. So I was born and grew up as an internally displaced person. And then later on in 1995, that's when I had to cross the border into Thai side, and I officially became a refugee back in January 1995 until I was settled to the US. And as I said earlier, my experience is not a unique one. I had experienced the firsthand human rights violation committed by the Burmese military, as I had to literally flee overnight, jumping out from the house with nothing but just the clothes on my back. And our whole village was burned down on the ground. And myself, my family, and the whole village, the villagers from the whole village, we had to flee into the jungle and living in the caves. That's where I had to go through when I was a child. And there were times when hiding in the jungle, we didn't have the food to eat. There were times when my family had to go to bed without food in their stomach. And I was the youngest one, so I was given a feast of white rice so that I had something in my stomach. And then I just went to sleep like that. And also there were times when, as a child, I didn't even have the rights to cry, because we all have to be scared of where, if the Burmese army will be finding out where we are. And that was very scary, because if we get captured, then the whole village will be sort of like destroyed, and we will be get killed. So my family cannot put me in the place where I can jeopardize everyone's life. So I was like literally have to shut out. And there were also times when I saw people were killed, including my own immediate family members, as well as my classmates. And my aunt was gang raped and brutally tortured. Her husband was tortured and murdered, killed before the Burmese troops can pull all the information out from him. So as I said earlier, the brutality of the Burmese military has been going on before I was born and during my time and until now. So we have a lot of children who grew up without parents, not knowing where to go and what their future holds. So this is the story that I wanted our audience today to know, that the situation in Burma is not getting better and not getting any far from where I had to live through. So that is why I hope that my story touched you, and it gives you some level of obligation to help raise the awareness and making sure that the voices of the people of Burma are heard.
Absolutely. And what a powerful advocate to be invoking that in us as people who get to cross your path. Thank you so much. I know, I also just want to say thank you for sharing your story, because I know every time that one does that, that's a gift to us and a very painful experience. I know for you that you experienced, and to relive it is very challenging. So I just really want to thank you for being willing to do that. And I do hope that for those listening, that you understand just how much of a gift it is that Myra is willing to share these things with us, and might we be propelled by them, like she said, to do something about it. So what else is going on, and what can we be involved in are going to be some of the questions we're going to get into today. But before we dive into that, for folks who might not be familiar with the conflict in Burma, Myanmar. So first off, we might just real quickly want to highlight, you've referred to the nation or to the country as Burma in your story. Many others also do. Yet if we look at a map today, it reads Myanmar. Can you just tell us what's going on there a little bit?
Well, that's always a question. And my thing is that Burma is Burma for me. Burma cannot be Myanmar. I mean, think about it this way. You go to bed last night, before you go to bed, before you went to bed, we have our country's name, our country named the United States of America, right? But then the next day you get up in the morning, and then President Biden changed the name of the country to another name. How would you feel? Exactly, that is what I wanted to tell you. So basically, the Burmese military, the rulers, making it sound as if Myanmar is more inclusive, including everybody in the country. That is not the case. Myanmar translates to Burma anyway. And also they're trying to brainwash people in another way, saying that, okay, Burma is, the name of Burma was given by the British. So that was the colonizing name, and the colonized name. So that is why we want to get rid of the colonization mindset and all this. But that's just a joke. Baloney. Sorry for my language. But so what I wanted to say is that because the country's name was changed with no consent of the people of Burma, I just wanted to say that Burma is Burma, and everyone who called Burma, it means that you are challenging the military junta for their illegality of giving the name to the country. So as long as the country's name is not changing legally, I don't think I can bring myself to calling my country another name.
I really appreciate that clarification. That's the clearest I've ever heard it explained. So I'm grateful for that. Now, I know I had the chance actually about 7 years ago to travel to Thailand, you mentioned earlier, on the border of Burma, and got to go right up to the river that divides Thailand and Burma. So I could even see the Burmese jungle that you were referring to with my own eyes. And I got to learn a lot while I was there about what's going on, only scratching the surface for sure compared to your knowledge. But I also got to meet a lot of the beautiful people that you're talking about who have had that awful journey fleeing from the conflict. And I know that the conflict is a bit complex. Conflict always is complex, right? But for folks who might not be familiar, you've mentioned the Burmese government. I know there's the hill tribes, and then sometimes we hear the names of some of those tribes. Can you give us just a little picture of who's the conflict between and what's going on in terms, especially of the hill tribes?
Certainly. Yes. I guess one of the most complicated countries in the world. So just a quick note to what you said earlier. So the situation of Burma and Thailand is a bit different. So in Thailand, the Karen is considered as one of the hill tribes, but in Burma, we don't. In Burma, Karen is one of the ethnic nationalities, or you may also call it ethnic minorities, because it's not because of the superior and inferior, but because of the number of the population in the country. So in Burma, yes, it is comprised of 7 states, and the states are named uh, by some of the main ethnic groups, but that doesn't mean that in one state there is only one ethnic group. For instance, like Karen State, sorry. So, for instance, like Karen State, many other ethnic minorities also living. So we coexist together. And also in Shan State. Shan State is another very good example. Like you have at least 10 other main ethnic groups in Shan State, but they just coexist together. And so this is the beauty of Burma, where we have each and an individual states, but also every other ethnic minorities are not just ethnic minority, every other ethnic nationalities are welcome to coexist together. So it's almost like our states here, where you have Minnesota states, New York states, where you have everyone together, right? So we share the culture, we share the food, we share the costume, the beliefs, and all this stuff. So that is the beauty part of it. And who fight against who? Um, One thing we need to understand is that the ethnic states are located around the country, the outskirt of the country, but not the center of Burma. So you're going to see like Karen State and Mon State and Karenni State and Shan State. They are bordering with Thailand, and also Kachin State bordering with China. And then you go India, and then you come to the western side of the country. You have Rakhine and Chin bordering with India and Bangladesh. And all these states are very rich in natural resources. You name it, we have it there. The best ruby, the best emerald, gemstones, and then of course teak, um, gold. The western shore of Burma is very rich in oil and gas. So the Burmese military is very greedy, and they just wanted to get out to those places and control all the natural resources across the country. But also at the same time, remember, the Burman majority, especially the ruler, they have the tendency of wanting to make the country one nation, one ethnic group, one language, one religion. So I take it down to power and greed. And that is why they go out to every corner of the states in Burma in order to control all the natural resources to make themselves rich. And that is why you see nowadays the very elite group of the military generals that are very rich, and the rest of the country is poor, or just the middle class populations. And for them to be able to control the states that are very rich in natural resources, that are supposedly owned by the ethnic groups, they have to use it, they have to control it by coercion, right? So of course they use the arms, they use all kinds of weapons and ammunitions, and all kinds of human rights violation. They've been used rape as weapon of war. They've been using human as human shield. Um, yes, mass atrocities, even including genocide. And this is the reason why Burma is at the place where they are today. And we still have to making sure that they're not taking over our lands. Otherwise, they're trying to turn all of us into the Burman majority, which is not something we wanted to see in our country. And so basically, sorry to make it so long, but the shortcut is that because of the power and greed, the Burman majority, the one who is in the power right now, using their troops to come in and invade our states. And so basically, all the ethnic minorities are fighting against the Burman majority who is in power right now, so that we can have our own autonomy, some level of running our own states, making sure our children still know who we are, our language, our culture, our costumes, yeah, all this stuff. And that is where we are right now, and we're still fighting.
Thank you. That was a very helpful understanding. In terms of this conflict, I know you mentioned earlier that you yourself had to run. You were an internally displaced person for a while. And then ultimately, I'm assuming were a refugee where you crossed the border. Is that correct? And there are thousands upon thousands of people who are having to leave the country because of this conflict that you were just referring to, who've been displaced as refugees. You have landed in Kansas City, Kansas area, right?
No, I actually landed in New York City.
New York City, great.
Yeah.
And where else are some of these folks that are getting displaced? Where are they migrating as they're resettled?
So the beauty part of it is that we have the Burmese diaspora in pretty much all our 50 states, if we talk about the United States. It's just that we also have the secondary migration, because some of the places, like saying St. Paul, Minnesota, we have the Korean community that has been settled down, established, well established for the past 10 years. So the newcomers will be coming in, will be landed at different states, different cities, but finally they found their way to the main place where the Korean communities are. And if that is the case, then we have some secondary migrations where we have some of the community is a lot bigger than some other communities. And so that is the situation in the States. And we also have many other countries around the world, especially the European countries, and our other like-minded countries like Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and some other Asian countries as well, Japan, Malaysia, South Korea, and many other countries, even in Israel. And so, yeah, this is where the people of Burma are spreading out across the globe.
And for those of you who are listening, there's a strong possibility that right in your own city or your own region, you might be able to come across someone in the grocery store or otherwise
Absolutely.
who shares this heritage and this story. And I encourage you to seek them out and get to experience the beautiful hospitality and cultural richness that comes with that. I know that's a thing that I really love about my life is I think we learn so much from each other. We learn so much about ourselves, when we're experiencing someone else's culture. We learn about our own culture as well as theirs, and that mutual exchange can be so beautiful. You referred a bit to that, in the states, in the Burmese states, that you have all different tribes that are sharing the states together and being able to live with one another and each hold on to your cultural heritage, but at the same time be in friendship and relationship. And all the more as people move into our communities, we have that same opportunity to learn from about our own selves and about each other and about humanity together. So that's an often hidden and not experienced gift that comes in all this horror, because obviously I would imagine that most people who've left long more than anything to go home. That's at least in most of the conversations that I've had with people. Home is always home for all of us.
Yes.
And so people want to go home. And so to that end, I imagine home can't be accessed until there's peace and until there's some of these things that are worked out. And so I know that you lead an organization called U.S. Campaign for Burma. And that is a part of what it might look like to get things to the place where you could, where home could be home again, where there could be peace and these things. But can you talk to us a bit more about what your mission is, how folks might be able to get involved, where they would find more information?
Sure, certainly. Thank you. So U.S. Campaign for Burma is an organization that raises the awareness on human rights violation committed by the Burmese military. Um, so before the coup, we focused on the ethnic minorities that were still suffering human rights violations, even though the country was semi-democratic at the time. I mean, we had the semi-democratic for about 10 years, right? But the situation for the people on the ground didn't change. Even when NLD, the National League for Democracy, led by Aung San Suu Kyi, ran the country at the time. So at the time, a lot of people failed to realize that the military was still behind the scene running the country significantly. And so basically the military had a whole lot of power to maneuver through the system behind the scene without accountability. And the Burmese military still committing grave human rights abuses one after another. And they never get, they've never been punished. And that is why it is very important that we keep talking about what's going on inside the country, the human rights abuses and mass atrocities that the people on the ground have to go through. Um, and also the biggest thing that we're trying to focus on is the inclusivity of all the ethnic minorities. Um, I mean, the abuses is different from one group to another. Perhaps the way the abuses was carried out or the intensity, but the bottom line, we all are suffering at the hands of the very same perpetrators. And that is why we have to making sure that everyone's voice is included. And also now it's coming from the coup and also post-coup. Here you have a lot of information coming out from the country, but at the same time, we also have to making sure that the voices of the ethnic minority is not disappear. So we have to making sure that while the attention is on the coup and those inside and the CDM protesters and all these, but at the same time, the voices of the ethnic minorities still coming out. And that is our mission, to making sure that we amplify the voices of the people on the ground, making sure that the voices are heard at every corner where we are. And so basically we're trying to work to empower the grassroots diaspora, to making sure that we are educated enough so that we can amplify the voices of those who are suffering at this moment. So, because the problem is that as long as the military continue to attack our people, our work is not going to be done. And so how can you help? You have the voice. Let me just tell you, blank out. You have the voice and you have the freedom. You have everything you need here. You don't have to be worried about, if I was speaking out about Burma, I'm going to get arrested tonight, and then I'm going to have to throw it in jail, or am I going to be raped and thrown into is in prison or tortured or anything. And that is why the first step we just have to start off with, yes, get ourselves educated to a certain extent so that we have enough to talk about the credible information. Speak to your government officials. They are the powerful decision-making people, but they don't have enough time maybe to read about everything that we know. So whatever we know, we can share it with them. We can tell them what the people of Burma need, and making sure that they use their power in order to leverage it and bring about the democratic change for the people of Burma. You can also visit our Facebook, Twitters, Instagram, our blog post. That's where we have the information. And you can always search us under US Campaign for Burma. Beyond that, if you wanted to do more, here I am. My email is Myra, MYRA, DAH at uscampaignforburma.org. Please email me and let me know What do you want to do? What information do you need so that you can talk to your government officials? And the easiest way, we call it multiplication, is always effective. You read the news, post it on your Facebook, Twitters, share what you read on your social media. I mean, think about it this way. I have about what? Maybe 1,000 friends on my Facebook. Every time I share a piece of news, an article, maybe just 10 or 20 of them might have seen it. But if 5 of them share it also, I mean, yeah, the number will only increase and our voice will only get louder. So doing advocacy work is very tedious. It's not going to happen overnight, but it is worth it. And that is why I just wanted to invite everybody to join me and help use our voice to amplify the voices of the people in Burma.
Excellent. Thank you. That was very clear. And I'll make sure that in the link that we put your website as well for anyone who might have missed that or can't quite remember what to Google search. You can find it in the notes regarding this vlog or this podcast, and just click on it and connect with Myra from there. So thank you so much, Myra, for your time today. Is there anything else before we say goodbye to everyone that you just want to make sure you put out there to anyone who might be listening?
Well, I just want to emphasize again, we're talking about, we use the term never again a lot loosely. And I just wanted to remind all of us today, if we're saying never again, and we wanted to bring it to reality, it is time, and it is something that we all can do it at every little corner where we are. Once again, educate ourselves, making sure you share the information, making sure you reach out to your government officials and tell them what the people of Burma are needing badly right now. To be able to live freely, peacefully, safely, with dignity. And with that, I just wanted to say thank you so much for the opportunity to get to talk to you all. And I look forward to whatever information or a question you may have, any email you wanted to throw it my way. I'd love to see it, and I'd love to work with you all in bringing about change for the people of Burma.
Thank you again, Myra, and thank you to all of you who are listening and joined in on our conversation today. I hope that this has inspired you to be a part of what it does look like to amplify these extremely important voices and for us to be an agents of change to bring about justice and peace and good and love and unity and all the things that I think we all desire in our world. And so thank you for taking the time to learn today. And I hope that you will continue that journey.